Laura, thank you so much for being on Beyond the Tools. Glad to have you here.
I'm really excited.
So, Laura, I know you and I go way back, but our lovely listeners would probably love to hear a little bit about your background and how you got involved with Telelink. So, tell us a little
Yeah.
bit more about you.
So I kind of came from a background of software sales, and I had spent some time in Vancouver, which is like the Silicon Valley of Canada. And when I moved back to Newfoundland, because British Columbia was just way too far from family, so I wanted to come back home. I lucked out that the tech industry here was kind of booming at that time, and got hired by a lovely fellow named Craig Rowe, who I know you know very well. And that's where we met at Clear Risk, and worked there for a while. Worked at Verifin, another kind of big tech company here. And then someone who I worked with at Clear Risk, who you also know, Chris McDonald, was working for this fabulous, 100% women-owned company named Telelink here in St. John's, and he kind of wooed me over, and that was back in 2014. And so I've been working in the answering service industry with Telelink ever since, and it's been an awesome ride.
Mm. Wow, that's really awesome to hear your story from an outside perspective, of course. So, what was it that you found most surprising coming into the answering service industry?
Oh, it was so different. Having spent several years in tech before that, where everything was so fly by the seat of your pants and new, and one day you're on one team, another day you're on another team, to come into an industry that is been around for so long, since the 50s and 60s. It was a different pace. The industry moves in some ways more slowly, in other ways more rapidly, because it's been around so long. The technology advancements we've had have made kind of major shifts in the industry. So it was really interesting, and there was a real sense of community, both at Telelink and the industry in general. I don't know if I've ever seen an industry where competitors, owners of answering services, work together so much for the betterment of the industry as a whole. And it's really unique, and something I really love about the answering service industry.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's so great to hear. I know for a lot of contractors, they've so many of them have used answering services before. You've also got people who are maybe just getting to that stage of growth now where they're struggling a little bit with answering the phone, especially after hours, that sort of thing. I guess what are some of the most common scenarios of why a contractor would reach out to an answering
Yeah.
service?
I think the first one that generally drives people to seek help from an organization like us is quality of life. A lot of times, when you're answering these calls yourselves, especially if you're a provider of 24/7 service, if you don't have an answering service who can take those calls for you after hours, you are on call 24/7, taking those calls, whether they're urgent or not. You're taking them, and so that can really impact quality of life, especially for owners. If it's one or two person type of business, that has a drastic negative impact on your quality of life. And even when you grow to a larger business, having on call employees get burnout pretty frequently. So I think the initial one and the most common one is quality of life. But right behind that too is, or maybe at the same level, would be avoiding missed calls. That's a huge thing we hear from a lot of our customers, because in this business, a missed call is missed revenue. And so like yourself, I'm sure if you need a plumber or a technician or an electrician of any kind, if you call and you don't get an answer, you're immediately going to the next one,
Yeah.
right? You're not waiting. So missed calls would be, a big reason why people reach out. And then I think another common thing is really just wanting to offer better customer service to callers. If you are juggling those calls in between jobs, you're not necessarily coming at it with a, customer service professionalism approach at all times, right? You're rushing, you're juggling things. And so having an answering service that can be a professional, take those calls consistently the same way each time, document all that information for you, whereas you're scrambling to write things down on a notepad, it just makes things so much easier, and it frees people up to focus on the job at hand.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I've definitely seen all of those things with clients that we've worked with. And yeah, I can even remember doing a road trip across the island, which was like 6, 7, 8 hours with a friend of mine who runs an electrical company years ago, early stages for him. And the whole 6 to 8 hours, it was like different phone calls, patchy reception, trying to like work on the road. So yeah, quality of life and customer experience certainly rings true, I think, in a lot of those scenarios. And yeah, absolutely that more and more employees are looking for balance outside of work.
Absolutely.
Obviously, in the trades, we've got labor shortages. So being able to not only fulfill that work, but also give your team a break, I think is a huge advantage.
Oh, it's so important. I mean, if you've got something like this in place that gives life back to your employees after hours, that's an employee retention strategy right there.
Yeah. So obviously, having an answering service makes a lot of sense for whether you're just getting started in business and you need somebody else to answer the phone that's not the owner, or if you've got a full team but you need that after hours or emergency support. A lot of contractors have used answering services before, and I'm sure a range of experience, just like on the marketing side of things. What are some of the things that you think a contractor should consider when they're looking at different options for answering services?
Yes, that's a good question. There's a number of things. I think one of the first things you want to look for are um, aspects of their quality monitoring. Customer experience, your client's experience is so important. And you want to know that whatever answering service you're using has a solid quality assurance program in place that is focused on not just, training and monitoring performance of agents, but that is intelligent enough to communicate back to you when your script is not working, right? Because a lot in the call center world, in the answering service world, a lot of things come down to the script that agents use to take your calls, and that's what you build when you first, sign on with an answering service. And those scripts can be very complex. They can be very simple. It depends on a particular organization's needs, but understanding, is my script causing frustration for callers at a certain point? Do I need to pare it back? Or have I gone too simple and I'm not getting effective triaging of calls, So having a quality assurance program that can monitor that aspect of it as well is really important. I think one of the other key things you want to ask about are the reporting capabilities of an organization, because you want to be able to make use of the information that you're getting from your callers. And so building reporting up front that allows you to categorize your calls, and whether that's from, geographical region, or if you're a contractor that works for various projects by project, time of day. I mean, there's so many ways you can look at it, and it can give you different insights for your business. So partnering with someone who can deliver that kind of reporting, I think, is very important. Also someone that is willing to work in your software if you have one in place. So a lot of trades-based organizations will have an appointment booking software in place. And there's not a lot of call centers out there on the market that are willing to work in them, because it can be difficult to train agents to do that. It can make it more difficult to monitor the quality of those calls. But when they do that, it frees up your internal team from doing all of that administrative and data entry work. And it gives your callers the ability to just book and find a time right there on the spot. And that's so key, right? Like when you're calling, you want to know, when is someone going to show up at my house? So having the person answering the call be able to do that directly on the call is really important. So reporting, working in third-party software, quality assurance program, I would say the three key things that come to mind.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I mean, when it comes to using their actual systems, if it's something that a customer calls and it's simply like, okay, I'll take your name and information and get back to you, like you said before, that person is likely gone on to the next.
100%. And I mean, sometimes maybe you're not at a stage in your business where you have a software in place. So that is the next best thing, right? At least ensures the call is being answered. But if you have a booking software in place, find a call center who will work in it. So much better.
Yeah, I love that. So I'd love to break down the scripting a little bit more because I think that some of the most successful businesses are very process oriented and systemized. But if you've never had that outside support, even if you have a CSR team, but you haven't had an outside answering service, it can be difficult to really think through that process and what things should sound like. Can you walk me through how you would typically figure out what that script or what that process looks like?
Definitely. Yeah. So, and before I even walk through the creation of it, I guess I'll explain the importance of it, the significance of it, because I don't know if it's immediately obvious to anyone who's not working directly in the call center industry, but in our industry, you typically have very, very large teams of agents who answer calls for sometimes, 300, 400, 500 different customers. So you cannot just know that information in your head, right? It's impossible. We would fail consistently. So in our industry, we use contact center platforms that build account scripts that just automatically show on the screen for the agent taking the call. So they are trained to follow exactly what is on the screen. And those scripts are designed to move the agent and the caller through the call in a very professional and efficient way, so that you are, you're not wasting time, but you're not rushing either. You're just moving it through at a nice pace, but it's as efficient as possible, and you're capturing all the right information, and you're doing it in a very consistent way. So when you're designing that script, there's a few things you have to think about up front in terms of, is the reporting that I want to get from my callers? And if so, you have to build the script with that in mind. So if you want to know what regions your callers are coming from or what projects, you have to make sure that you've built that into the script so that the agent selects those things as they're going through, and then you can report on it afterwards. So you got to think about the reporting piece. And then you have to think about the triaging component. So if you think about the script as a tree, right? The call comes in at the start. It's hello, thank you for calling ABC company. And then there's different paths that script can go down. And the triaging is really where the agent will select based on what type of call is coming in or the situation that the caller is describing. Is something then going to be urgent, or is it going to be not urgent? And how the call gets handled after that point all comes down to that triaging, right? So if it's urgent, it's going to be probably called out right away. You might have multiple layers of on-call people. If it's not urgent, it likely gets held for the next day. So when you're thinking of that script, it's all those things that you want to think about: the reporting, the flow, and then the triaging. And that sounds complicated, but most answering services like ours would have templates that you work from. So it sounds very daunting, but there's usually a really clean template that you can start from and then tweak as you need.
Yeah, okay. That makes absolute sense. And obviously, anybody that's answering the phone is going to be an extension of that business's brand.
Oh,
When when somebody's calling, they don't necessarily know that this is an outside service. So, how do you make sure that your answering service is going to represent your brand well?
yeah. That's a really great question. I think some of what I just said applies here as well, and that script is one of the things that helps with that. So those scripts by design are structured to give a very professional and consistent experience to the caller. Uh, but there are opportunities to weave in your own brand on those scripts as well. And some of that is script based, some of that is kind of additional features that you can apply when people call in. So a lot of accounts use things like advertising. So when your call is waiting to be answered, you can have messages, like custom messages playing to your callers that gives them important details about your business, right? It can even be your own voice. You can upload those recordings yourself so that your customers hear you, the owner, or someone else within your business talking about your business, or you can have, someone on our team do it for you. And then when your call is on hold, same thing. And then throughout that script, as I mentioned, while we have kind of best in class examples, those are examples to draw from, and you can customize them to suit kind of your flavor, the flavor of your business, right? You might want to make it a little more, might want to make that answering phrase a little more peppy, friendly, funny kind of feel to it. You may want to just get people, depending on what your requirements are, you may want to just get people through the call as quick as possible. So that's all of those things can be kind of customized in the script when you build it.
Mm, yeah, that makes absolute sense. And I guess for most of your clients, are they typically upfront about it being an outside answering service, or they prefer that it's a seamless transition, that it doesn't matter if it's Telelink or whoever, like this is their
Yeah.
company? How does that typically work?
It's probably a 50-50 split.
Hmm.
It really depends on what abilities I think to the agent has, because for some of our customers, we do work in the software, so we can see all the information that would be needed to respond to almost any question the caller has. So in those situations, we can truly be an extension of the team. We have everything we need to address whatever inquiry that, caller has. But in other cases, if we're not working in that software, if what we can see in there is very limited, we may not be able to give the caller all of the answers for every particular situation. And so in those instances, most businesses choose to be more upfront about that and say, hey, this is actually the after hours service. But what I've done is I've noted this requirement. There's a message going out that, and someone's going to call you back within X amount of time.
Right.
And most people appreciate the candor that when something can't be done for them in that moment, right?
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. So it can it can definitely work to your advantage to be transparent about
Yeah,
it in certain situations for sure.
absolutely.
How do you get around learning the nuances of the market and the businesses that you guys work with? Like, I know with clients that we've had, obviously we have to learn the different neighborhoods that are in their area. And sometimes if you get somebody on the phone and they're like, oh, I live here, and you're not sure where that is, then that can create a bit of a weird experience. I'm curious how you guys go about getting to know the market and the business that
Yeah.
you're working in.
There's a few ways. Luckily for us, I mean, we do span quite a number of industries, so we're certainly not capable of being experts, I would say, in all of them. But there's some industries that really benefit from working with call centers. HVAC obviously being one of them, electricians, plumbers, property management, and affordable housing. There's certain ones that we really specialize in. And so really truly understanding those industries, the types of needs that callers have, that kind of comes part and parcel with having a large number of customers from those industries. But the other thing that we do, and I don't know that all call centers do this, but it's a big part of how we develop this understanding, is we've developed a customer success team. And so our customer success team works with kind of our key customers in each of those kind of industries. And they have like a limited number that they manage themselves. And when a customer success manager is assigned to that client, their job is to know that client inside and out. It's to know the outcomes that they're looking for in terms of their partnership with us, is to understand their industry, all the little nuances of their business, not just them as a customer, but their customers as well. And so that when we do those meetings, we call them, our business reviews with our assigned customers like that. It actually gets in a specific form that we use in our CRM. And when that gets done, it actually goes out to all customer facing employees in our organization so that we are developing a robust understanding of our customers and what their callers need across the board with our employees.
Hmm. And you talked a little bit there about outcomes, and I know we touched on reporting and thinking through what you need there. I guess typically for any businesses in the trades, what should their expectations be of an answering service, or what's the typical scenario of what they're looking for, or what kind of results they want to see?
I think definitely significant reduction in missed calls would be a key outcome that they would want to achieve. Better quality of life, for sure, for employees. In some cases, I think improved on-call costs. If you don't have really good triaging in place of urgent versus non-urgent calls, you can be unnecessarily sending out on-call personnel and driving up kind of after hours on-call costs. So in a lot of instances where we come into play and we have those kind of key criteria in place for triaging, we can help reduce those on-call costs. I think in terms of the reporting that we talked about, like that's really coming down to improving your business, right? Any business owner wants to improve their business over time, continual improvement, and getting those insights from your callers in a good, packaged report like that, and then having someone like a customer success manager, someone who's actually going to help you understand that and improve your business. That's something you should expect of a call center partner. Absolutely. Because if you have a call center that's working in your software, that is freeing your internal employees from having to do administrative data entry type tasks and allows them to do more value added tasks, right? More complex things. So I think that would be a pretty important expectation to have.
So if we look at a bit of the nuts and bolts of that, because I am curious, obviously if you're using their systems, they can see, okay, these were the appointments, for example, that came through. What are some of the other ways that your clients would typically measure what was happening, or how does that work with reporting back in terms of the calls and what happened and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So while we work in our client's software, we also still use our own internal contact center software. And that has some pretty robust reporting in it as well. So typically our clients would look at reports that show, average call length, service level. So how many calls were answered in, X number of seconds or less, abandon rate. All of those things highlight, especially if you're trending them over time, highlight performance in really key ways. So for example, your average call length. Typically, when a customer signs on with us in the first couple of months, the call length will be a bit longer. And in our industry, things are typically billed per minute, right? So A
Right.
longer call length is a higher cost. But you see immediately as agents get used to a script, that kind of call length goes down. And so that's even something that you can ask, if you're looking for call centers, what is your average call length? And if I give you an example of the questions that I want to ask, what would you anticipate my average call length is going to be? Because a call center that can move through a script efficiently should be able to help control that call length, right?
Mm.
So call length is a big one. Service level is a big one because you want to make sure that your calls are going to be answered in a, you know, average amount of time. It's impossible to answer every call in the first ring, of course. But you want to make sure that callers aren't waiting too long to have their calls answered. And the abandon rate, yeah, would be the other big thing. Because if you have calls abandoning, we typically in our industry talk about a valid abandon rate. If someone abandons within 30 seconds, we don't consider it valid because if you're not willing to wait 30 seconds to get, your call answered, it probably wasn't a valid call, right? Most people are willing to wait longer than 30 seconds. But after 30 seconds, then any of those calls that hang up without getting an answer would be considered an abandon. And so that's a really important metric you want to look at because if you have a high abandon rate, then it means your calls are just not getting answered quickly enough. And if you're paying someone to answer your calls, they should be answering your calls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Are there any specific examples you can think of, I guess, the impact that you've seen an answering service bring to companies that are in the trades?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we've got a bunch of case studies on our website actually from some of our kind of key clients. But the thing that there's always a consistent story that comes back with the trades-based customers, and I think it's the one that we hear most loudly is the quality of life. Like consistently, when we do, so we use NPS as a way of Net Promoter Score as a way of monitoring our customer satisfaction. And so for anyone who's not familiar with that, it basically asks them to, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely would you be to refer Telelink to another organization, and then asks you to share why. And so we love reading those comments because that really tells you what you're doing well and where you need to improve. And with our trades customers, we just hear so often in those comments on those surveys that, I got my life back. I can have peace of mind. I can go home to my family. I can eat supper with my family and not have to worry about getting interrupted a million times by calls. And so I think for me, I love hearing that because it puts such a personal spin on it, right? It's not just like a business to business thing. We're actually helping someone spend more time with their family.
I love that. That's fantastic. And yeah, I think something that's so needed
Yeah.
sometimes in this industry to be able to just pull the plug, whether that's
Yeah,
you as the owner or your team to be able to get some of that time back.
absolutely.
So Laura, obviously AI is such a hot topic right now. I know that more and more companies are trying AI answering or having AI agents in their business. What has been Telelink's experience with that, or what do you see as the future of AI, or even some of the downsides of having that right now?
Oh, I wish I could see the future because I would invest. It is a huge topic for our industry in general right now, and for us as a company as well. And we have kind of two parallel paths that we're pursuing with AI right now. One is customer facing, and then the other is kind of internal. So there's huge opportunity with AI in, almost any industry to improve internal efficiencies, but um, with answering services and call centers, especially around quality monitoring. So AI can play a huge role in monitoring agent performance. And I spoke earlier about the ability to mine to mine calls for customer sentiment, and that's something that AI really shines in. So it can monitor a huge number of calls and then give you data around, are callers getting frustrated at certain points in the script, or are they really happy in other parts, that can allow you to tweak things over time and just monitor way more calls than you would with a traditional call quality system, right? Where it's one person doing one call at a time. So that's a big piece of it from an internal perspective. From a customer facing perspective, there's a lot of learning going on now around where can AI completely replace, and where is it part of the process where you have a human in the loop complemented by AI. So for very, very basic calls, right now we're seeing AI agents having some success there. Whether it's a basic sick call, taking sick calls, or if it's a basic message capture where you're just getting name, number, email address, and firing that on. That is something that an AI agent can do. Does it always sound incredibly natural? Not necessarily. But if your priority is getting every call answered as quickly as possible, that could be a great option because, there's no limit. There's no calls waiting in queue. Every single call is going to be answered right away. So there's some key areas where it can shine. But I think where we are most excited, and a lot of call centers are excited, is the role that it can play in tandem with an agent. So if you look at AI as the piece that can capture the basic details on a call, that then frees your real human agents to focus on the more nuanced pieces or complex pieces that really require more sophisticated judgment. And so that's kind of where we're testing things right now. And we're hoping to have one or two kind of AI products live and ready for customer use within probably 6 to 9 months. So it's we're in the testing phase right now, and it's really exciting.
That is exciting. And yeah, I love your point about AI and humans working in tandem, because
Yeah.
right now I think it's a bit exciting, and also your savvy customers are going to catch on to, okay, this is an AI agent. Maybe some people are going to be excited by that, but you're also probably going to get some people who are not going to be happy about that experience. So being able to switch to a real person, and I think eventually having a real person is going to be a bit of a competitive advantage too.
Definitely. There is no doubt. And we see that already. We've got customers that are coming to us now with, I think it's important for me to have a real person on the end of the line. But I think for call centers to succeed in this world where AI is now, everywhere, we have to be able to do both, right? We have to be able to meet our customers where they're at. So for the customers that want that pure human interaction as a differentiator, we got you. We got that. And if you want a blend of AI and humans so that you can find that sweet spot of getting your calls answered and getting the easy information out first, and then using, your human for the more complex, nuanced stuff, we're there for that too, right? We're going to have to be able to do it all.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it'll be really exciting to see where the industry goes.
Yeah.
So I know our listeners are definitely going to want to connect with you and learn more. What's the best way that they can do that?
Go to our website, telelink.ca. So it's just www.telelink.ca. Lots of great information. As I mentioned, we have case studies there, lots of blog posts. There's a trove of information there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Laura. Always a pleasure, but I think this has been a really insightful conversation about how answering services can really elevate your customer experience.
Well, it was a delight to be here and to see you.
You too. Thank you.